All right, so we're back. I'm going to Boston tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow. I'm leaving around noon. It's about 16 hours from here to Boston. So I wanted to film another video before I left. All right, I'm not going to be able to finish the Willys truck in the time frame that I thought because of unforeseen circumstances. All right, if you've ever worked on an antiquated Willys truck, you'll know what I'm talking about. It never goes as you plan, ever. And that allegedly is what makes it fun. But it's not fun, but it is. But it's not, but it is. All right, so let me fill you in on what's happening. So, I've got several videos I haven't even edited yet to put on the channel. All right, I've been trying to film a lot. I think I've got 3. This will be the 4th one that I haven't even posted yet. So, I'm trying to keep y'all in the loop. All right, so there is I think the last video I filmed, I said that we weren't going to change the rear main seal because it's a rope rear main seal, and rope rear main seals is just trash. It is trash. Now there is an updated rear main seal, but I've seen different things saying that you can't put that on here. Other ones say you can. I think you can. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to. But either way, we need to order that rear main seal to put on the truck. So it won't be here in time, so I can't go ahead and change it. I have cleaned the bottom end of the engine. I've got it almost done. Cleaned it pretty good, scraped it and stuff. There's still a little bit of the gasket left on it. But I was under the impression on the Willys engines that I've messed with, 4 cylinders, the L head and F head, and other rear main seals I messed with on older stuff, they have the rear main seal is under the rear bearing cap. Okay, this truck is made correctly, but at the same time wrong. And I will elaborate on what that means. All right, so let me show you what that means. All right, so let me extend you out so that you can see. So most engines, like I say, if you're at the back of the rear main seal, you'll have the bearing cap. You take 2 bolts out, you pull the bearing cap out, the rear main seal, 1/2 of it. This is the rope rear main seal, okay? This is just BS. All right, but anyway, they did this on a lot of older engines. So on that bearing cap, you'll have this half on one side, the other half is in the engine block, and that shrouds your bearing. Your crank goes in the middle like this, okay? And the other half goes like that, all right? Normally, you have to pull the bearing cap, pull it out. Be very careful not to sling your bearing on the ground, and you'll have to fight the rear main seal out of the engine block. This particular vehicle has what's called as what's referred to as a bearing retainer. Okay, this piece goes at the very back behind the crank. This piece right here goes at the base of the crankshaft. This part goes into the towards the transmission. Okay, this humped up piece. And this is where your rear main seal sits, and then the other half is in the top of the engine. I didn't realize that the 226 Willys engine, which was made by Continental, I believe, was made that way. I didn't know that because this is the first rear main seal that I've effed with on a 6-cylinder Willys truck. So the other ones I've done are all 4 cylinders, and they're made the way that I referred to previously. I wasn't expecting this. So this truck, this is a 1960, it had a rope rear main seal. This is what's left of it. Now, interestingly enough, this rear main seal didn't appear to be leaking very much. It was leaking because you could see it on the ring gear and stuff, but it wasn't like insane. But that's what's left of it. And this fit into this groove, and it's a horrible, 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 horrible idea. It's horrible. Trash. This is the new rear main seal, and this is also trash, okay, because you've got to jam this into this tiny groove. You've got to try to jam this, fight it in there, okay. This part is actually feasible. You could probably do it on this side. But on the other side, this is inside the engine block, and you've got to try to push this rope, it's literally rope, out, be able to grab it, pull it out. Now, some guys use what's called a sneaky Pete, and that works pretty good. Or you can just replace it with a more modern style neoprene gasket, or seal, and you can do that. So we're going to order that neoprene seal and try that. It's asinine not to go ahead and replace the rear main seal. Now, the only reason I said that in the previous video, because you'll see a previous video to this one, where I said we weren't going to change it, and that's because it wasn't linking, and I wasn't going to use this rope. Just to fight this into the block is a nightmare without the proper stuff, and even then, it's not very feasible. So at that time I was going to. When I realized it was made this way, it would be asinine not to try to at least change the rear main seal while you already get it apart, because you have to remove this, because this sits on top of the rear of the oil pan gasket. Actually goes underneath these lips. This one's in the back, and this one is in the front. Okay, this goes against your timing cover, seals against the timing cover, and it also has the gasket go on top of it. So you have to remove these to pull the gasket off the bottom of the engine in order to put the new one on. Okay, so this actually helps hold the gasket in place when you're actually putting the oil pan back onto place. But in the meantime, it's a pain in the ass, and it's also made out of pot metal. So this one's already broken. Now, this doesn't particularly matter because all it holds is this, which goes into this groove like that, and this sits in the curved portion of your oil pan, and there's one corresponding front and back to seal the round portion of your oil pan. So it doesn't actually have to be perfect. This one's more than usable, but why they made it out of paper mache and unicorn tears, Willys, you could have done better. Continental, you could have done better. All right, this should have been cast iron, cast steel, but they didn't have Red Clay Traveler on the design board when they did this, so we're going to let it slide, but still, it's not appropriate. So anyway, we're going to order the rear main seal, the neoprene one. So we're not gonna do it right now. Now, we did get the new oil pan dialed in. Let me show you that real quick. So this is the oil pan that's off of I think like a 59, 60, 61, something like that wagon. I can't remember. The wagon was in horrible shape, but this oil pan is in really good shape. But even though it's in perfect shape outside, it has no dents, nothing. It did have one hole in it, and I don't know that you can see it. It's like up in the dark recesses, but up here near the drain, there's a little spot where it was rusted through where water had been sitting in the bottom of the oil pan. Now, we ran a spot of weld over it just in case. I don't know that it was all the way through, but we wanted to weld it just to make sure. And then we went ahead and painted it black. Now, I did sandblast it. I told you I was going to film that. But got a little bit of a hurry. Started sandblasting. Didn't even think about filming it. Was just trying to get it sandblasted. And it was also allegedly supposed to rain, so I wanted to get it sandblasted and painted, so I didn't film it. Plus, side note, the sandblaster we're using is a mobile unit with a diesel engine, and it's aggressive. It's not the blast cabinet. We decided just to do it sitting on a stump instead of in the blast cabinet because it'd be faster, and it blows sand everywhere, so I would have had to put the camera so far away from where I was sandblasting to keep it from scratching the lens that it wouldn't have done any good. So I just skipped over that. So forgive me for that. So the oil pan's ready. It's ready to be installed. We got to finish scraping the bottom of the engine some, and then that's ready. So all we got to do, chest pain. All right, anyway, we've got to finish scraping the bottom of the engine block and order this neoprene gasket. So yeah. I hope you've enjoyed my history talks. The video I posted today has some Jack the Ripper action. It has some talk about Big Timber. I saw your comment, Matt J, where you're talking about where you grew up in New Hampshire, where there was some Big Timber action and stuff. But I love y'all's comments, all of you. All right, hang on a second. Just a moment. All right, I'm back. I'm sorry I had to take a phone call for a minute. You'll never know this because I've edited it out. Anyway, where was I? What was I saying? I don't remember. Anyway, we're going to, I think I'll roll up underneath the truck real quick and I'll show you a little peek about what we're talking about and as far as those pieces are concerned so that you know what I'm talking about. Let me take all my crap out of my pockets so that it doesn't scatter all over the ground. Because that's no bueno. We don't want that. So we're going to put this crap over here on the rolling stool. Take our phone out. Because if you've ever rolled up underneath the truck and all this crap just falls everywhere and it's no bueno. Yeah, I think I've covered most everything. I'm planning on, I mentioned it in a previous video that I haven't even posted yet, but by the time you see this video, you'll have seen it. But I'm thinking of doing some kind of random history stuff while I'm out of town. I hope y'all like that. Oh, I remember what I was saying. I really enjoy y'all's comments. I really like hearing from y'all. Please continue to comment. Please continue to hit the like button, share the content, and obviously subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I appreciate it all more than you know. I enjoy this a lot. I really like the videos. I like interacting with y'all. Y'all are some solid folks, and I like it. I like it a lot, and I want to keep doing this, and it's going to be Willys content. It's going to be Jeep content. There's going to be some history thrown in, so I think we're building a good little community here. I want to keep doing it. So go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your grandpa. All right, tell them all. Tell them all. Let's crawl up underneath this truck and we'll have a look-see. There's my bald head. And we'll have a look-see at what all's happening under this unit. How about that? Sound good? I'm going to collapse you down. Look at the Willys while I do that, because I know it's aggravating while I'm doing this. But it is what it is. I'm not a professional. I'm not Steven Spielberg. All right. All right. Let's have a look-see. I think we got enough light under there for y'all to see. All right. Let's have a look. Oh. All right. Ow. Hitting stuff. All right. So, hang on just a second. This is rather difficult, so bear with me. All right. So if you look right up in here where the light beam is, that's where that first drop piece was at that I said seals to the timing chain cover, all that. So if you look right here, you'll see there's a bit of a gasket. That's where that back of that piece of pot metal seals to that. The other two bolts go into the bottom of the engine, okay, on each side. So in order to take this off, you have to pull out these 4 bolts around the bottom, and then these 2 bolts that go into the engine. You have to be very carefully pop that off to keep it from destroying, because it's made out of paper mache and unicorn tears, okay? Now, if you roll back here with me, if I can roll, let's see. All right, back here is where the rear main seal goes. All right, so hopefully you can see this. All right, here's the very bottom of the crank right here. This is the end of the crank. That other piece of like cast aluminum that I showed you earlier went right here. It lips into the back of your bell housing right here. Your training's back here. It lips into that. All right, 2 bolts go in, and that's all that holds it on. This is where your rear main seal goes. All right, so the other half of that rear main seal is in the block right here. All right, it loops around this crank on the other side. This is going to be a pain in the ass to get out, but we're going to try to get it out and put the new rear main seal in as best we can. Good enough for government work. And then you clean this whole edge up. I've cleaned about half of it up. There's still some more that needs to be done, but we've cleaned up a little bit of it. But we got to do like down there towards the timing cover, back here some, and get this all nice and cleaned up so that the oil pan slides back on it. All right, this all right here in the middle, this is all your crank, obviously. This is your money maker right here, your crank. Here's your oil pump, your oil pickup. Okay, this is your oil pickup. All this looks very good. There is some surface rust on the crank, a little bit, but that's probably because this truck is sat a lot. It doesn't have a lot of hours on it from what I can tell. Everything looks very good, but this little bit of rust, we're not really worried about that because we know there's oil in here and we know the bearings are going to be fine. The engine doesn't knock or rattle or anything, so we know it's fine. So we're going to try to change this once we get the new gasket in, and I'm back from Boston. We're going to try to change this rear main seal, put a new gasket on it, okay? After all this is cleaned up, put a new gasket on it, slam the new oil pan on there, and get this all dialed in. And then we'll have a nice new rear main seal, oil pan, new oil pan on it. Hopefully it won't leak anymore, even with that little hole that I told y'all about. We're going to clean up this pickup some of this other stuff. Maybe brush this crank with a little bit of steel wool, then blow all this out with some carburetor cleaner or a brake cleaner, and just kind of clean out any residue of dust, because if you get any kind of dust in here, we don't want that mixing with the oil, because that's not good. So we'll get that all cleaned up. And then once we get this all put together, we've ordered a crap load. Let me roll out from under the truck. We've ordered a crap load of parts. Sorry, I have to set up. We ordered a crap load of parts. We ordered a new gas tank. We've ordered a whole brake line kit. I actually had some brake parts because of the subscriber I mentioned in a previous video, the last video I filmed. He sent some brake shoes and some other stuff, so we actually already had that. So that saved me some money and some time, so we didn't have to order that. So it'll have new brake shoes, all four corners. It'll have new brake lines. It'll have a new master cylinder, new hard brake lines, new rubber lines. It'll have a new gas tank. It's already got a new fuel pump on it, so we'll run a new fuel line for that. It'll have a new oil pan gasket, new rear main seal. So we're getting a good fresh up on this engine. It certainly deserves it. It's a good truck, very solid truck. It's got a little bit of rust in the floors. I saw a little bit of rust underneath the what would be kind of like the kick panel over there, kind of where the fender is. But overall, the truck's old. It's spent most of its time probably on a farm, so you know we're not judging. Look, aha, cigar. Look at that. Where's my lighter at? It's over there. Let me light this. Oh, kick the camera. Let me get up, light the cigar, and we'll continue rambling. How about that? Does that sound good? It sounds good. All right, let me get up. Oh, it's graceful. It's graceful. All right. Extend you back out. I apologize that the last two videos haven't been a whole lot of action, but we're trying to do the best that we can, you know. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I'm not a professional, all right? I do the best I can filming stuff, and it's not always the way that I would like it to be, but it's the best we can do. When I'm vastly wealthy, then I can have my own cameraman. 2 or 3 cameras at a time, you know what I'm saying? But right now, we're doing the best that we can. And I hope y'all appreciate it, because I appreciate y'all. And I hope y'all enjoy these videos, because I enjoy making them for you. And let's see, let's get you lowered down. There you go. All right. So yeah, so that's where we're at on this truck. We're making progress, and it feels so good to be back working on a Willys truck again. It feels so good. It feels right. It feels right. And I like working on the CJ5, but it's just not as pure a heart as the Willys trucks are. It's just not. You know. I don't smoke too many cigars to where there's cigars just laying around, and I'm like, oh, look, there's a cigar from the other day, you know. There you go. Now, what kind of history can we ramble about today while we close this video out, and then I go home and try to get some sleep before I drive 16 hours to Boston? All right, let's see. What kind of history can we do today? Off the top of my head, uncensored, uncut, unresearched, just from my mind. What can we do? What can we do? I don't know. I'm going to have to try to think about it here for a second. I should have planned ahead. I didn't. I didn't plan ahead. I have to admit it. I didn't plan ahead. What can we do here? How about a little ghost history? How about that? You want to hear a little ghost history? Let's hear a little ghost history. All right, so over here in Georgia, there's a place called Allatoona Pass. Now, Allatoona Pass had quite a bit of Civil War action at it. There was a battle there in 1864 called the Battle of Allatoona Pass. It didn't really amount to a whole lot, but there was some conflict there. But there is a story that starts just after the Civil War about the trains that run through Allatoona Pass, that they saw reports just endlessly of a man being on the trains. All right, so they'd be like the engineer or conductor or whoever. He would look, and there would be a man sitting on, like you've seen a train carriage, a coal carriage on a train from back in the 1870s that had, you know, the box itself that had the coal in it, and then there'd be like a little bit of a roof over it. They'd see a man sitting on that roof, and the conductor or the engineer, he would come back there and he'd be like, hey, you know, what the hell you doing sitting on the train? You know, this isn't for that. You're not supposed to be on this train. And they would walk towards this person, and he would disappear, and then they would turn around and he'd be sitting behind them, sitting on the edge of the roof back there behind them. And that story is rather prevalent. It goes all the way up into, from what I've seen, all the way up into the teens, into the 20s. Guys that were running the trains immediately after the Civil War up into that era. Allatoona Pass has been known to be haunted because of the Civil War activity in there. I don't know what the particular reason for why they allege that there's a man haunting the trains in Allatoona Pass. I don't know what the particular story is behind that, but it's interesting. Okay. Now, America has fought a lot of wars, all right, a lot of conflicts, ones we should have been in, some that we shouldn't have been in, if we're honest, all right? And to say that this one day during the Civil War, late 1862, is one of the bloodiest days, is the bloodiest day in American history, is saying something. In order for the Civil War's body count, the total number of men that died in the Civil War is about 650,000 to 700,000. That's not counting into consideration the number of civilians that died. Now, most of those civilians were Southern civilians during the Union invasion of the South. And you can read, I've read the first-hand accounts from Union officers about the Union Army's behavior in the Deep South. There was a lot of needless bloodshed, but it's also warfare, so I understand that. But at the same time, it's, a lot of civilians died. So we don't know the number of civilians that died, but regardless, just military personnel, 650 to 700,000. In order for that to translate to modern standards, you would have to lose over 6 million Americans. That's the percentage of the population that would have to die right now to equate the loss of Americans during the Civil War from 1861 to 65. okay, 650,000 of the total population of America at the time. In order to match today's standards, we would have to lose over 6 million Americans. That's a lot. Okay, you'd have to think about that for a second. That's a lot. That's a lot. Okay. There was whole segments of populations north and south, whole towns that the entire male population between the ages of 18 and 50 were gone. There was nobody there, especially in the Deep South. Especially in the Deep South, there was whole towns, villages that the entire male population were gone. Generations of men gone. There was a battle here in Georgia at the very end of the war that Union officers, I've read their accounts, said that there was generations of Georgians on the ground, grandfather, father, and son. Whole male lines gone. We haven't had a war that devastating since then. World War II was devastating. I had plenty of family members in it directly. So did you, more than likely. And nothing to that extent. Nothing. Nothing. It's just insanity, the amount of bloodshed that occurred during the Civil War and how close it is in time. Like I say, my great-grandfather's brothers, my great-uncles were veterans of the Civil War. Okay, that's not that far back. A lot of people think it's like 4,000 years ago. It's not. It's not. It's not. Okay, it's not. Your grandparents probably interacted or talked to Civil War veterans when they were young, when they were a kid back in the 20s and 30s. They probably saw some old man and talked to him, and he was a Civil War veteran and didn't even know it, north or south. Okay, so I find this era particularly fascinating. I have lots of family members involved in the Civil War. I have family members that were in the War 1812, family members that were in the Revolutionary War, in World War II. I don't really have any that I know of in World War I. I'm sure I do, but they're not direct family line. But I'm like Lieutenant Dan is what I'm saying. I've got them in the important wars, the wars that mattered. We got some Red Clay Traveler ancestry fighting in it, you know. And it's a strangely satisfying thing to think that your family's been here since the very, very beginning, since before the Revolution, since, you know, as long as there's been Americans, there's been somebody that I'm directly related to that was there, basically. And that's, it's a strangely comforting thing, honestly, because you got to think about all the things that they went through, all the things that they dealt with the famines and the wars and the hostilities between peoples and between the British and the Northerners and the Germans and the Native Americans that they were fighting and back and forth. And sometimes they were wrong, and sometimes they were the victim, and sometimes they were the aggressor, and all the just hell that occurred just so that you could be here right now. All those things that occurred, it comforts me. It makes me think of like all the things that I deal with that I'm not happy with, that, you know, I complain about, I'm upset about. You know, like it's nothing. It's really nothing. You think about the things your ancestors went through just so that you could be here, knowing that they would never know you, they'd never know your name, they'd never know that you would ever exist, but they went through all of it just so that you would be here, so that their family name could carry on and that you could carry on and you could do something. It's incredible. It's very comforting. And, or at least it comforts me. It makes me at ease sometimes when I'm feeling down, is to think like nothing I'm dealing with is nothing that my ancestors didn't deal with, nothing that they didn't have to conquer and deal with. They had the same emotions. Mankind hasn't evolved as much as people think. The same motivations, the things that make you happy and sad, the things that make you worried at night, that keep you from sleeping, all those things, your ancestors dealt with that for hundreds of years. They've dealt with that. So that we like to think we're so advanced and modern. We're really not that far removed from antiquity. You know, we would find a lot more in common with the people in Rome and Greece and ancient Egypt than maybe a lot of people think that we would. They had the same emotions as we do. And think about all that toil just so that you could be here. So you get out there and you seize the day. You conquer it. You get to the sea. You conquer it. I'm on a pep talk tour this last few videos. I don't know why. It makes me feel better. I don't always listen to it myself, but I want to give y'all something. And I give you the Willys trucks. I give you some history. And maybe I give you a pep talk from time to time. So I'm Red Clay Traveler. I hope you keep on keeping on. Don't you stop until you reach the sea. You understand me? I will see you at the sea. Don't forget, Willys for life. Always nothing but Willys for life. The Recreate Traveler loves you. Tell your friends, tell your family. Keep on keeping on, and I will see you all shortly. Get it? Get it? Yeah, buddy.